This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Today's class will be about oral cavity cancer. The most common cancer or carcinoma in India is oral cavity cancer, and is the third most common cancer worldwide. Oral cavity cancer is the most common cancer in India and third most common cancer in the world. Anatomically, the oral cavity extends from the lips till the fauces or soft palate and soft oral cavity from lips to soft palate, tonsillar pillars, and the base of tongue. This is the part which is called the oral cavity. It includes anteriorly the lips, followed by the gums, the teeth, tongue, upper and lower gingiva or the gums, buccal mucosa, floor of the mouth. Floor of the mouth is the content which is lies beneath the tongue. Floor of mouth is the part of oral cavity which lies beneath the tongue. And then hard palate, alveolar ridges, and retromolar trigon. Retromolar trigon is nothing. Is a hidden part where cancers are common. Retromolar trigon, which it is not usually visible. It is usually the site where the cancers are easily missed. This is retromolar trigon. It lies behind the third molar and anterior to the tonsillar pillars. The lips, there are the the lips are the upper lips and the lower lips. The anatomically, the margin that lies the lip are the commissures. They unite are the commissures. In most people, the lower lips are exposed more to the sunlight than the upper lips. The lower lips are exposed more to the sunlight than the upper lips. On the outside, it is just lined by smooth non-keratinizing stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinizing stratified squamous epithelium, and on the inside they are lined by the various minor salivary glands. Salivary glands. As the lining cells are squamous epithelium, the cancers that are predisposed are squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and on the inside melanoma. Squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma. And the lips are supplied by the labial artery. The lips are supplied by the labial artery, which is a branch of facial artery. The muscles that are contained are the orbicularis oris, which increases or decreases the diameter of the entry of oral cavity. And the most important concepts here are the lymphatic drainage. The lymphatics of the oral cavity, pharyngeal cavity, nasal cavity, larynx and trachea. The most of the lymphatics of the head and neck are drained to the lymph nodes, deep cervical lymph nodes, the deep cervical lymph nodes. These deep cervical lymph nodes are divided into 7 areas. They're divided into 7 areas. The 7 layers, 7 levels. 7 levels. The first level is the sublingual and submandibular gland. Sublingual and sublingual, submental, and submandibular lymph nodes. The level one is further divided into 1A and 1B. 1A is the submental lymph node, and 1B is the submandibular lymph node. All structures which are in the midline in the oral cavity drain to 1A, that is the submental lymph node, whereas the structures laterally are usually drained by the 1B, that is the submandibular lymph nodes. There will be significant crossover, that is they can all the structures as either midline or lateral either drain into 1A or 1B and 1A and 1B. It can drain into either of the nodes or both of the nodes. and there are further communications between the 1A level and 1B level. Coming to the next important structure, it is the tongue. Tongue, it is a muscular structure. It is formed by 6 muscles, 3 extrinsic muscles and 3 intrinsic muscles. The extrinsic muscles are genioglossus, hyoglossus, and styloglossus. This is called extrinsic muscle because they are attached to various bones in the neck and head. This genioglossus is a muscle which connects genio of styloid genio part of hyoid bone and tongue muscle. Sorry, I don't. Sorry, I'm coming again. Styloglossus connects styloid process and tongue. Hyoglossus connects hyoid, and tongue, whereas genioglossus connects genioid tubercle and the tongue. Coming to the intrinsic muscles, um, there is vertical muscle. There is a vertical muscle which flattens the tongue. There are transverse muscles which increase the transverse section of the tongue, and there are 2 longitudinal muscles. One is superficial longitudinal, other is deep longitudinal muscles. These are the various muscles of tongue, and this tongue is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinizing epithelium. Stratified squamous non-keratinizing epithelium. And the surface of the tongue is lined by various papilla, which are significantly important for taste sensations. Along with the muscles and papilla, in the posterior one third of the tongue, there are intrinsic lymph nodes. There are intrinsic lymph nodes in the posterior third of the tongue. Anatomically, it's divided into anterior. Embryologically, the tongue is divided into anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3, both of which have different origins and show different nerve supply, and hence the differential drainage. The tongue is divided into right and left halves by a median fibrous septum. It can be demarcated into 4 anatomic areas: the tip, the lateral borders, the dorsal surface, and the ventral surface. Just like tongue, this is also supplied by a branch of facial artery, and also by the ascending pharyngeal artery. This is because it has differential embryological origin, and it drains into the internal jugular vein. Nerve supply. The taste from anterior 2/3 of the tongue goes to the facial nerve, and sensation from the anterior 2/3. There are various sensations. One is taste sensation. The other is general sensation. That is general sensation like pain, temperature, and so on. So the sensory supply, the special sense. Taste is a special sense. The special sense, that is the taste, is because of the facial nerve, is because of the lingual nerve, whereas general sensation is by the facial nerve. The taste is also perceived by, on the posterior 1/3, the taste is perceived by the glossopharyngeal nerve. And all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue, hypoglossal nerve, are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve, except for the palatoglossus, which is supplied by the vagus. And coming to lymphatic drainage, the anterior portion is supplied by is drained to the submental, that is 1A, the lateral to the submandibular and deep jugular, that is 1B and 2. 1B, 2 and 3. The jugular lymph nodes are further divided to 3 levels. One is second level, third level, fourth level. Second level from the base of mandible to hyoid. Base of mandible to hyoid. And level 3 from base of hyoid to cricoid, and level 4 is from below cricoid to thoracic inlet, 2, 3 and 4. And posterior lower tongue is also supplied with the upper jugular digastric lymph nodes. Upper jugular digastric lymph nodes. and beneath the tongue is the floor of the mouth. This floor of the mouth is the place where sublingual and submandibular glands are present. Sublingual and submandibular glands are present. The floor of the mouth, it overlies the important muscles that are present here, the mylohyoid and hyloglossus. This mylohyoid divides the floor of mouth into superficial and deep spaces. Superficial and deep spaces. The posterior border of the floor of the mouth is the base of anterior tonsillar pillar. And the blood supply comes from the sublingual branch of lingual artery, and lymphatic drainage is to the superficial and deep lymphatic nodes. It drains to the level 2, 3 and 4. The drainage of floor of the mouth is level 2, 3 and 4 and 1B. Level 2, 3, 4 and 1B. Buccal mucosa. Buccal mucosa is the one that lines the inner part of the oral cavity. Buccal mucosa lines the inner part of oral cavity. It extends from the point up from behind the lips till the tonsils. It extends from behind the lip and till the tonsils. And it's the main arterial supply is from the facial artery. The nerve supply is by mandibular. The motor supply is by the facial nerve. It drains into the periparotid, submental, and submandibular lymph nodes. This class will be just naming stuff because this is just anatomy, which is the revision of what you have learned in the first few years. So this class will be mostly about anatomy only. The pathological aspect will be discussed in the next class. Coming to the hard palate. Hard palate is a bony structure which separates oral cavity from the nasal cavity. Hard palate separates oral cavity from the nasal cavity. It is also lined by various minor salivary glands. Various minor salivary glands. Arterial supply comes from the greater palatal. Venous supply is by the pterygoid plexus of veins. Nerve supply is by the maxillary nerve. And lymphatic drainage is by the upper D cervical lymph nodes and the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. The alveolar ridge includes the alveolar process of maxilla, mandible, and the mandible overlying mucosa. Give me a minute, please. And there are two ridges. One is the lower alveolar ridge and the upper alveolar ridge. Alveolar ridge is nothing but the alveolar process of the maxilla, the alveolar process of maxilla, mandible, and the overlying mucosa. Upper gingiva and lower gingiva. Upper gingiva is nothing but the gums of teeth are mentioned as the gingiva. Gums of teeth are the gingiva. Its the posterior margin is the upper end of pterygoparietal arch, and it drains into the submandibular lymph nodes. It drains into the submandibular lymph nodes. And this is an important structure. There are 5 hidden areas in the mouth. and retromolar trigone is one of them. Hidden area is nothing but these areas are usually not screened or scanned and there is high chances that we are missing a carcinoma. These 5 areas, they harbor carcinomas, and these 5 areas are usually missed during evaluation in a patient. These are evaluated patient. So these are called the hidden areas. These hidden areas are retromolar trigon, retromolar trigon, pyriform fossa, maxilla, and tonsillar bed, tonsillar bed. And, the next thing I'll mention next. There are 5. The retromolar trigon is a triangular area which overlies the ascending ramus of mandible. Retromolar triangle overlies the ascending ramus of mandible. The base is found by posterior most molar. Apex, it lies at the maxillary tuberosity, and the lymphatic drainage is to the superior, deep, superficial and deep jugular lymph nodes, that is 2, 3 and 4, the periparotid and the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. The retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Why should we learn why should we learn about this head and neck cancers? Before as I have told you, it is the most common cancer in India and the third most common cancer in the world. The predominant etiology is smoking and tobacco, alcohol, beating nuts, and the infrequent causes are poorly fitting dentures, nutrition and dental care. And previously it was more common in the ratio between males and females used to be around 10:1, and now it has decreased to 3:1 because even females are smoking these days. And there is something called as second-hand smoking, where the male smokes and the female inhales his smoke. This is second-hand smoking. This is second-hand smoking, and another viral causes being herpes simplex virus and human papilloma virus, and variants of human papilloma virus causing carcinoma in head and neck are 6, 11, 16 and 18. 6, 11, 16 and 18. 6 and 11 usually cause benign etiologies, whereas 16 and 18 are the malignant etiologies. And almost all the carcinomas of head and neck are squamous cell carcinomas. Almost all the carcinomas are squamous cell carcinomas because the lining epithelium is the stratified squamous epithelium. The lining epithelium is the stratified squamous non-keratinizing epithelium. And the rarer entities are lymphomas, basal cell carcinomas, and very much rare, very rare are the sarcomas. Because there is less of connective tissue here. The sarcomas are usually less common in these areas. And the best thing with squamous cell carcinoma is that in all carcinomas, take it esophageal, take it stomach, you need to go for a surgery. The best thing about squamous cell carcinomas is that it responds well to radiations. The squamous cell carcinoma, they respond very much well to the radiation. So instead of going for very debilitating surgeries, we can treat the patient with radiotherapy only. And a major surgery might need a commando operation. You know what commando operation is? Commando operation is nothing but it is a abbreviation of combined mandibular and neck dissection. Combined mandibular and neck dissection, where in most oral carcinomas we have to remove the jaw, we have to remove the various lymph nodes and also the contralateral lymph nodes. Such a major surgery is causes greater morbidity in the patient and increases the mortality. Because of the radiotherapy, this morbidity is decreased and the need for a bigger surgery is less. So because of radiation, as the tumor shrinks, we can go for a very small surgery like wide local excisions. We can, a patient who might need a command operation can be treated with a wide local excision by virtue of this radiotherapy. Okay, just remember that for any oral cavity carcinoma, the prime treatment is the radiotherapy. Okay, and coming to the renal carcinomas, there are adenocystic carcinoma. Adenocystic carcinoma is the most common malignancy in male salivary glands, and mucoepidermoid carcinoma is the most common malignancy in the parotid glands. Adenocarcinoma, it's carcinomas arising from the salivary glands, and sarcomas, as I have told you, very rare. Ameloblastomas from the bony structures like mandible and maxilla, lymphoma, and Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi sarcoma is caused by human herpes virus 8. Human herpes virus 8. So, and coming to the spread of pattern of spread, any carcinoma has spread, and this the spread is through various routes. It is either local, lymphatic, hematogenous. Local, lymphatic, and hematogenous. Local spread is predominant in oral cavity carcinoma because almost all the structures in oral cavity are soft tissue. There is not much resistance provided by the tissues. So the local spread is predominant. That is why a wide local margin for any oral head and neck carcinoma is important. And lymphatic spread, as I told you, there are various lymphatics which drive these oral cavity structures. And sometimes the only presentation of a head and neck carcinoma can be an enlarged cervical lymph node. A only symptom of a head and neck carcinoma can be a enlarged cervical lymph node. And distant metastasis is usually rare in head and neck carcinomas. So these are the various structures in the oral cavity. You can see the ventral aspect of tongue, the floor of the mouth, the maxillary tubercles, and this is what I have told, the retromolar trigone. Laterally, it is covered by the buccal mucosa, anteriorly by the molar tooth, posteriorly by the tonsillar pillar. This is the retromolar trigone. And before knowing various malignancies, we need to know the pre-malignant conditions. The various pre-malignant conditions that can occur. Pre-malignant conditions are nothing but, as you all remember, normal cell, a metaplastic cell. A metaplastic cell is where the normal epithelium is replaced by the abnormal epithelium, but with normal differentiation. Metaplasia, differentiation of normal epithelium to the another epithelium, but with normal differentiation. And from metaplasia, there is dysplasia. Dysplasia is where there is loss of differentiation and along with change of epithelium. There is loss of epithelium along with loss of differentiation. And dysplasia finally becomes carcinoma. And these dysplastic lesions are the pre-malignant conditions. The dysplastic lesions are the pre-malignant conditions. So these are Leukoplakia, erythroplakia, oral submucous fibrosis. Leukoplakia, erythroplakia, oral submucous fibrosis, discoid lupus erythematosus, syphilitic glossitis. All these conditions, they increase the risk for malignancies. All these conditions, they increase the risk for malignancies. They itself are not malignancy, but they increase the risk of malignancy. And the most important and the most common pre-malignant lesion is the leukoplakia. Leukoplakia. It looks like a chronic white verrucous plaque. Verruca is nothing but irregular. Verrucous means it's irregular, and it cannot be cleared off of the structures. This leukoplakia cannot be cleared off of the structures, and the intensity or risk for malignancy increases with the duration and the amount of tobacco and alcohol the patient has consumed. It can occur anywhere in the oral cavity. And then the next condition is the erythroplakia. Erythroplakia, it is just like leukoplakia, but it is red. It is red in color. It is red in color, and the risk for malignancy is more in erythroplakia than leukoplakia. Though it is red, it is not inflammatory. Though it is red, it is not inflammatory. And the leukoplakia, erythroplakia, when you identify such lesion, immediately you need to go for a biopsy. So this is a leukoplastic lesion, leukoplakic lesion. It appears white. Early morning, my brush but the difference is that can be cleared off, and leukoplakia can't be cleared off. And this is erythroplakia. Just because it is red, it is not inflammatory or it is not bleeding. It is a dysplastic lesion. This is a dysplastic lesion, and when you identify such lesions, you need to go for a biopsy. And there is something called submucous fibrosis. This is an entity which is common in betel nuts, erica nuts, where the mucosa is connective tissue, and within the connective tissue there is collagen fibers. This betel nut and erica nut, they induce inflammation within the structures, leading to progressive fibrosis, mucosal atrophy, and formation of fibrotic band. And there will be and any structure, any organ where there is chronic inflammation, there is higher risk for malignancy. For example, submucous fibrosis, and another example is hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is an inflammatory condition where there is increased risk for hepatocellular carcinoma. So remember this: any place which is prone for chronic inflammation is also prone for malignancy. This submucous fibrosis gradually and ultimately evolves into a trismus. Trismus is where you can't protrude the tongue, you can't open your mouth properly or completely. The oral inlet is decreased, the tongue movements are decreased. Okay, and that is where the patient will have patient will also have dysphagia, and then there is loss of there is mucosal atrophy. Therefore, there will be loss of salivary glands, and therefore there will be xerostomia. Xerostomia is nothing but absence of salivary gland secretions. And 5 to 10% of these conditions progress to squamous cell carcinoma. So this is the pathway: irritation, inflammation, and inflammatory activation, which finally leads to TGF beta. TGF beta is a cytokine which increases or induces fibrosis. TGF beta induces fibrosis. Okay, we shall discuss cancers in the next class. I am feeling a bit unwell. Okay, please excuse me for this class. And what is your class strength? Someone please answer.
154, sir.
164.
154, sir.
154. Okay. CR
154, sir.
CR లేడమ్మా.
నెట్వర్క్ ప్రాబ్లమ్ అంటారు.
అటెండెన్స్ రికార్డ్ చేసి పంపించేయండి.
అంటే చాట్ బాక్స్ సేవ్
సరే
అక్కడ ఆప్షన్